Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for being here. I am so excited to be moderating this awesome cartoonarium by Comics in Color. This is a beautiful opportunity for us to just watch some magic happen by some great illustrators that we have today. We'll be watching Calyn Pickens-Rich, Jam Sketch, LJ Baptiste. We're going to see them do some awesome work, hear them talk about their character development and pretty much how they like to draw and the process that goes through their mind while they're doing all of this great work. So I would love to, I'll give a soft introduction for myself. My name is Rixie for folks I haven't met out there in the wild. I'm an interdisciplinary street artist here in Boston, doing a lot of femme character work. But the best thing about being here is that we get to see everybody do their own kind of characterization, which is some of the best fun parts. Honestly, like customizing is always the best part of video games, to be very honest. But even so, is to be able to watch other people figure it out and see how they put all these different sorts together. So I would love if the three artists could like introduce themselves before we kind of get into some drawing today. Is that possible? So Kaylin, would you, since you're going to
Sure.
be going first today, I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Calyn Pickens-Rich, or Dr. Calyn on the internet. I have been making comics and illustrations since I was a little kid. I created a character when I was 6 years old named Dill. And that character has followed me over the years. He's the only thing I ever used to draw until it became a whole world of Dill. So now I just essentially curate the universe of Dills, and each character has their own comic and their own adventures. So I grew up in Paris, France, and then I went to my second college in the US in Brooklyn. I went to Pratt, and now I'm just doing things in New York.
Okay, international. We love it. And it's even more so like while you build these stories, you're going to be influenced by everywhere you go and everything that you kind of like meet along the way. So that's super special. Thank you for sharing that. Um, LJ, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So, hey everyone, my name is LJ Baptiste, and I'm a comic artist, cartoonist, storyteller, whatever word or term you want to use. But yeah, I'm someone that has been into characters and into stories and just creating different worlds and stuff like that since I was a little kid. And that was when I created some of my first comic books. So, yeah, one thing that I feel all of us here have in common is we've gotten to create different characters that have stuck with us from an early age, and we've gotten to just continue developing them and figuring out who they are and what they're like. So for me, it's been fun to just get to explore my different characters through the process of just creating them and writing for them and stuff like that. So yeah.
Thank you. And we're going to be able to see you kind of develop all those as well here. Everybody's going to have like such common threads, which is going to be really fun to watch. Thank you, LJ. And then lastly, before we start watching such great line work happen, Jam, if you would love to kind of give your little liner. Um,
Yes.
we'll
Don't
kind of
mind
get
if I
into it.
do. Don't mind if I do. Hello, folks. My name is Jamal Simmons. Everyone calls me Jam, though, so feel free to. I've been illustrating for as long as I can remember. My mom was an artist. My dad was an artist. They put me up on game and showed me, breaking down like, the all the basics, anatomy, and like, vanishing points and all that stuff. And that led into a love of comic books and video games and movies and animation. And I've been all about that stuff ever since. And I illustrated and try to create as much as possible. So I'm all about it. I love seeing others create. That's why I get excited when there's festivals like this going on. This is probably the baddest one ever, yo. I might just be biased right now, but I'm
That's
feeling the
okay.
vibes right now. So yes, I'm happy to be here. Long story short.
For sure. Thank you. Well, we're all excited to have everybody here. And enough talking. Honestly, we're not here for the talk. We're here for the talk, but we're mostly here to kind of see all this drawing happen. So I'll get a kind of timer ready if that's cool. And we'll start off with our Cartoonarium with Calyn drawing. So Dr. Calyn, I love that name.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. All right, whenever you're ready, you could go ahead and start, and then we'll kind of
All
just start
right.
getting into some like conversation.
Okay, so I suppose think that I should preface by saying that this is Dill here. And this right here is his friend Delan, so that everyone is aware of which characters we're dealing with here.
For sure. Where did
Sorry, yes.
No, it's okay. You could tell all of us as much as you'd like, but
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna say very quick context. Dill has proven successful somewhat in his revolution and is now trying to designate a task for his friend. So that's what just this is what's going on.
For sure. So where did Dill come from? Like, does this character, because everybody, when they're creating their characters, sometimes there's a reflection of themselves or things around them. But for yourself, like, where did Dill come from? Pretty much, especially if he's a recurring character.
Yeah, the thing is, like, the look of Dill was very much, I watched a lot of cartoons as a kid. My brother goes to Cal Arts because he was always a fan of cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
So he is, he has those like typical, or at least when he got started, it was very typical of like, he's 10 years old. He always wears the same clothes.
Right.
It's like very basic, but he had a bit more of a complex personality than some of the other characters in the beginning, just because he had a lot of contradictions going on with him. So it's like on one hand, he was this happy kid, but on the other hand, he was also very angry at adults and things that didn't really make sense to him. And the main thing, I guess the recurring thing with his personality is he was never afraid to say when he was upset with things.
That's important.
So, yeah, he was never afraid of he was never afraid of adults. He was frustrated with them, but he was never afraid of them.
I mean, we know that most kids are bold and they say whatever they want to adults too.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm glad that that's something that, like, we love all the different type of characters, but I'm glad that that's something that's fairly prominent, especially it's gonna be like a circling back to relevancy of like what we need for today, and like almost like this empowering character to be able to like hear somebody standing up for themselves and kind of having those notions.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't really make it super duper public usually, but he was very inspired by my brother, because I'm not necessarily trying to blast my brother's personality all the time. But
I mean, if he inspired you to get here, then that's okay.
Yeah, he parts of Dill are very, very much like him, because I have two brothers, but one has a 9-year difference, and he's at his first year at RISD, so he also makes his own things. But my other brother, we're only 2 years apart, really, 21 months. And so we grew up playing together. And so I saw his struggles and I remember his struggles firsthand. And he went through a lot in school, and it was an early exposure kind of to how much the system has really failed, whether it's, in France or in America. It doesn't really matter how much it's failed students that don't fit in.
Right.
And he never gave up on his dream. His dream was always to do animation. And they would say, you're never going to learn how to be like the other kids. Like, it's not going to happen. You might as well be a plumber, is what they would say to him. And yeah, and he's at Cal Arts now, and this is
Yeah.
his second school. He got his degree in screenwriting already. So it's just proof that it's this system telling kids what they can and what they cannot do, basically, and that's what's determining sort of where people go in their lives a lot of times.
Of course. I mean, there's so many parts of you that like want to challenge what they're saying at the same time, and that could be fuel for what you make, you know? But
Yeah.
one thing that you kind of like pointed out that I thought was interesting, you said that your brother is going to Cal Arts for screenwriting and you're doing these comics, which is another form of writing. It's another form of this like story building. Um, and if your characters are inspired by your brothers and your family, do you bounce ideas and stories with them, like when you're creating your comics, or how much of
Oh,
it you find yourself like opening this realm to them and finding that that juice is kind of like mixed within like how you're creating your work?
so I'll be more specific. My brother actually previously already got a degree in screenwriting at the International Film School of Paris, and now he's at Cal Arts for animation.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
so, but yes, but you are correct in asking that, because I always call him with questions about storytelling.
Mm,
Um, and that's a very good point, because they're like my main sounding board. They really are.
sure.
Both my brothers and my mother are my main sounding board in life. And I will usually, like, if I'm stuck in a comic or if I want to know if something's working, I'll show it to them. Or if I think something's funny,
Mhm.
I think of some idea that to me it's funny, I'll just call them and I'll be like, hey, what do you think? And we all bounce off really well.
That's awesome.
We always have ideas. We kind of grew up that way. All three of us would always make stuff together. We would make a lot of movies.
That's cool.
Yeah, we usually had a camera in the house, so that we could make things.
Hmm.
And so even my youngest brother was like included on it, and he'd always have input on the films that we'd make. He was like 5. He's like, no, I think the character would
The
more suit
executive
this.
director on
Yeah.
set, actually.
Yeah, everyone was included. And my mother is very practical in a sense,
Hmm.
which can be useful, especially in storytelling. Of, well, she's super honest. She's like, oh, I don't think that works at all.
Right.
Or yeah, that works, but you should maybe, like, I don't know, add this or that. So it's I'm always bouncing ideas off of my family.
That's awesome. I think that's something that, like, especially for a lot of different types of artists, and not everybody comes from the same kind of background, but I think a lot of times other artists or like the general public may assume that we're doing most of our work by ourselves, which is, oh, you're doing all of this work by yourself in a lot of ways, but to be able to have like your family members or folks there that are there to be like a rubber band and help bounce things
Mhm.
around, that's super special.
Yeah, in the end, as humans, we actually always depend on people. I don't think anything is really 100% done on its own.
For
There's
sure.
usually someone that had some kind of input in there.
So no, of course, I'm like also just like hypnotized by you doing your line work as well. But one thing that I really like, I felt what I really wanted to ask, especially with yours, is I love your shapes, and especially with like your line work that I'm watching now, like there's a lot of similarity that I feel like kind of complements very early childhood type cartoons, as well as like mature as well, because you're putting lines and shapes that we might see in a lot of different areas, but one thing that's really popping out is like this shape of the head,
Yeah.
and that has been like your staple in all your illustrations, across different types of characters. So that, especially having that like repetitive notion and being such a dynamic shape, like where or how did you come about deciding that this was the head that you wanted to choose? Because I always thought when you're building different characters and everybody's different, I love seeing like that one or two like consistent like notes that you don't want to like kind of let go in a lot of different ways, So
Yeah.
where how did you decide that these shapes was going to be the one thing that you're going to like kind of take with you along?
So the shape did evolve. It was always like overall the shape.
Mm,
The rectangular aspect was not as harsh in the beginning. But my early drawings are kind of, I honestly scary looking, for lack of a better word, because they're, a kid's version of what's acceptable. And I was just like, the heads were very weird. Let's just put it that way.
I mean,
Um,
there's a lot of weird heads in a lot
yeah,
of like cartoons, and especially in more childish cartoons, they're using like complex shapes or like just weird shapes. It's not even like symmetrical
yeah,
or geometrical. They get more oblong, and maybe that's something that happens when these shows become more mature. Um, but
yeah.
I think that's why like yours is really working in both of those settings.
Well, it's also the cartoons I watched like are we'd get a few reruns of American cartoons, the popular ones, but our family would also send us Nickelodeon cassettes.
Mm,
And we never got, I don't even know if Cartoon Network made cassettes, but we always got Nickelodeon cassettes.
the
And it was very
bright
specific.
orange ones.
So yeah, so in a
The only
weird
ones that
way,
are
even
important.
they were the best because they're orange. And um I actually grew up watching Nickelodeon without ever having Nickelodeon.
Mm,
Um and so, and shows like Hey Arnold, I mean, they all have really weird heads.
yeah.
And yeah. And so it's like a lot of it also I think has to do with what you're exposed to. Because I was a huge fan of those kinds of things. Like I remember when Jimmy Neutron first came out, I freaked out. Me and my brother, we just freaked out. We were like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And he's got a really strange looking head.
Yeah, they're like kind of peanut shaped,
Yeah, it's like peanut or the
swollen.
chestnut swollen. Needs medical attention.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
no, it's weird.
Um,
It's
I don't
weird.
want to short little cutoff, but you have like about 4 more minutes just to kind of give you a heads up. I feel
Okay.
like the time went so much more quickly, but you're saying so many great points. So definitely, please continue in what you're saying.
Oh yeah, no, that was mostly it. Just like the um with the head shape, is a lot of it was like the stuff that we would watch, because I think that in a lot of, I mean, people might disagree, but I think in a lot of ways Nickelodeon took more risks than Cartoon Network, and especially in terms of the way the characters were. So
Mm,
that's what I was most inspired by.
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that was a good point you just mentioned, like the risk factor that Nickelodeon did versus cartoon, because I feel like that can like really be
Yeah.
digested in like, we can make a tit for tat list on that
Yeah.
because there's so many risks, whether it was like the drawing style risk versus the animation and how they chose to like use their humor too,
Hmm.
because I feel like
Hmm.
that was one of the things that really separated these two networks was like what type of humor are they willing to have?
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and especially now that we're a lot older and we look back and we're like, yo, they let this on TV?
Yeah, Ren and Stimpy is like
Yeah. Oh God.
yeah,
How were we
exactly.
watching this as a child?
Exactly.
But no, that's cool. I have like one more question for you before time's up is how would you see Dill interacting and engaging in the real world like today?
Oof.
Granted, this is a character that you've had for such a long time. Um, but if they were to kind of come out here and be part of our actual space, like, how do you feel like they would interact with everyone?
So that's my favorite question ever that
Yay.
no one's ever asked.
Yeah.
Because uh, me and my brother, we kind of like to talk about AR and how animation would work
Mm,
in AR, since a lot of people are experimenting with it right now.
of course.
And seeing a lot of his classmates actually try to get into AR.
Mm,
So it's like really is a question that a lot of animators are asking themselves. Um, I suppose the first issue would be that Dilla's never shows his profile because he's a flat 2D. So that would be very interesting to
some
see in
Paper
real life.
Mario effects is all good.
Yeah, exactly. But Dill as a real life character, I feel like would be a really fun friend to have.
Sure.
At least in my imagination, I feel like if I was a kid, um, or at least when I was a kid, my favorite people were people who would just do things,
Hmm.
who you could say like, hey, I have an idea. Let's go take this skateboard and I'll push you, over this giant hill. And they're just like, yeah, great idea.
Sure.
So Dill's kind of like that. So I feel like a real life version of Dill would be a lot of fun for kids and
Sure.
maybe absolute purgatory for teachers. But for children, he would be a good friend.
That's awesome. Well, we have 1 minute left, and we actually got a question from some viewers. So let's see if we could try to fit this in, okay? A
Okay.
question from Harami P. Devinga. They said, you mentioned risk factors. What risks did or do you make in your art? It looks like it seems to have paid off.
So well, I'll try to answer quickly then, but I
No, such a good
think
question
that
for 1 minute.
in a sense, like persevering's kind of a weird risk to mention because it doesn't sound like one, but at least in my particular case, it really was because uh, this is not always easy to market or talk about or try to like make things out of with people, and so being consistent and being like, no, I'm willing to change, but this I'm not willing to change
For sure.
has been the risk. That, and then also maybe, I don't know, moving countries. But
Of course.
mostly the perseverance part has been the biggest risk for me.
And, and I think that trickles into everything. Um,
Yeah.
Dr. Calyn, thank you so much for honestly just sharing so much. I know I was mainly hypnotized by watching you draw, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's also talk. But this was awesome. It was really cool to hear about your characters and kind of like how they're inspired by a lot of things in your life. So I really appreciate you having that moment with us and letting us kind of into this process a little bit
Well,
more.
thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciated this.
Of course. And we'll see you around again for
Okay,
sure.
well,
Are you vending? Are you going to be there on Saturday?
yes, I will be there on Saturday.
Sure. And is there any place that people could reach you? You want to like do some?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at drcalyn.com, drcalyn.com, or you can find all the comics on dillcomics.com.
Still Comics. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Always need to plug in yourself and your awesome work. It was great watching you and talking with
Thank
you.
you.
Of
Okay, do
course.
I stop the screen share? I'm just curious.
of Tyler, this young kid over here, and his raccoon sidekick Rocky, and just him finding out and discovering like what his story is, and um, learning more about the neighborhood that he's moved into with his friends. And also, those are my arms. So
Thank you for the
yeah,
clarification.
yeah. Like I gotta make sure that's cleared up because I don't want anyone else taking credit. So
So what are you gonna draw for us today? Is it kind of a scene within one of these books or part of like the storylining of Tyler and Rocky?
what I'm thinking is I'll actually go ahead with some drawings of Tyler himself,
All right.
and we'll get to I'll get to talk a bit about just how this character came alive in the first place.
Yeah, especially what I think is the most impressive is when like you and even Calyn explaining like having these characters for such a long time. I think the dedication to be moving from not only like the evolution of you as an artist, but to still be able to like evolve within your skill as a person and still find that you want to like come back into this character, right? So,
Hmm.
how did you decide that Tyler was going to be your main character, like, not even, like, 3rd on the draft, like, he's your
Yeah.
your whole favorite.
I When I first did my first drawing of him, I literally went into it with the intent that the character I was going to be making was going to be a new main character for something,
Mm,
and that kind of just became part of. I guess that kind of became part of just the way that I approached it.
mhm,
And that's something that I suggest too for anyone that may be watching and they may be looking to create some of their own main characters or just characters in general or building up their own cast. I think it helps a lot to be very intentional and understand like what you want to do and why you may want to do it, and to get to see like what direction you're going in and what things you could do to help make that more possible. Like even little things like him having this T-shirt with this one on it, like
mhm,
I specifically did just because like I wanted him to have like some type of symbol to set him apart a little bit more. And I have this picture over here. This is like days after I first came up with the character. So this is like some of the earliest artwork of Tyler that I've ever made, and you could see how he's been like kept the same. This was like 2008.
mm,
Yeah.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah. So one thing that I like to do that I've found really helpful too is just getting to. I'll finish this up, but beyond getting to do different drawings of your character, build model sheets for your character. Like that's been something that's been really helpful for me. And for anyone that may not know what a model sheet is, it's just basically a, visual guide for how your character looks and
Mhm.
how they react to things, how they may appear at different angles and stuff like that. And that could be used to also help yourself figure out who your character is and how
Right,
you want to portray them. So,
right. I think
yeah,
before you kinda get anywhere when you're having a main character or even building your characters, you gotta know who they are. You know what I mean? And maybe
definitely.
not all the time. Sometimes they
Right.
could just be like these filler figures, people on the background. But I think what really kind of helps them engage with viewers and audience, the people that are supposed to be discovering them within like your readings or however way you feel like presenting these characters, is the more that the actual author or artist knows them, and that's part of
Yeah.
that character development. I think that's what sometimes, like, even students will forget. They're like, "Why are you asking, like, what's their favorite food or, like, what their, main moods are throughout the week?" Because it's like you should really understand who these characters are, in a lot of ways to make them very strong, and you're giving them so much life when you're learning about their own layers.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And the thing too is it's always going to be a process of discovery anyway because you're
Right.
never going to be able to, and you shouldn't seek to, I feel, completely know your character all the way anyway. So
Sure.
you definitely have to figure out the balance for both because it's like people in a way,
Mhm.
and even ourselves, like we're never going to fully completely know ourselves
Of
like
course.
while we're still here because we're always going to get to learn and evolve and try different things and look at things in different ways. So
Sure.
yeah, like I've gotten to it's cool to have characters that you have your own understanding of
Mhm.
at one moment and over time just see how that gets to develop and change. And I remember when I was a kid and I was really, when I was first really getting into just watching the different cartoons that I saw on TV, um, like any kid, I would always notice how weird the characters in different shows would not only sound or act but look in the early episodes compared to
Right.
later episodes. Yeah, it's like it could be like a completely different show and you could just watch and
Yeah.
just feel this is so weird. This is so different. Like why are
Mhm.
they being so off here? And it became a matter of just understanding like, oh, in these early episodes they really didn't know the character like that yet.
That's why you have to
Or
give, like, a lot of fluff room for the pilot episodes. You just kind
yeah,
of like,
yeah.
"Imma give you a little pass right now because I
Mhm.
understand you guys are just trying to understand how, other people are gonna interact and what it means now that you've, like, really placed them in an official setting." Um
Definitely. Yeah.
Something I've always actually wanted to ask you, is especially with Tyler, like, how much do you find Tyler being a reflection of maybe your personal life or people close to you, or does he or does he not? You know, I understand like not every character does have these like kind of personal relations, but I think they do, especially with artists. They do. They really
Yeah, yeah.
do.
I feel like even if we don't mean for them to, they're going to. Like
Right.
for the longest time I really felt that he didn't,
Mhm.
but uh over time I literally would have people point out to me in different cases how I was similar to the character and over time I've had to just recognize that for myself too.
For sure.
So yeah, he's definitely a reflection of me, like at different moments, like when I was younger, and even now in certain ways too.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's fun to have a character that you can relate to and to have ones too that you could disagree with and you could use to explore different thought patterns and ideas and stuff like that.
Of course. And that's kind of like the beauty of building characters, is that you're going to have that character that might be you, might be a little bit of your enemy, a little bit of that boss that you don't get along with, or maybe
Yeah.
like your best friend or your mom. So I think that's like also the fun of building these characters. I actually have a quick question for you. Another one from Harambe P. Debinga. They
Mhm.
said, "Hey LJ, my daughter wants to know if the model sheet is a separate document with sketches of different expressions of her characters. She's working on her own comics right now." So maybe just kind of talking a little bit more of what that model sheet looks like for you to create
Yeah.
expression.
Yeah, absolutely. So I could show a quick example too.
I love this face.
Thanks.
This is giving me very like regular show when they are
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I don't know why like
Mhm.
that exact like expression is very much like they did not clean the park and
Right. I love those storyboard driven shows. Um okay, so I actually have a couple things as far as model sheet stuff. So one thing, this is something I use for classes at times too. But one thing that I highly suggest getting to do for your model sheet first off is build a turnaround. So it's literally just what it sounds like. It's you doing a drawing of your character facing completely forward and doing other drawings of them at different angles, basically showing what they look like all the way over until you see them completely from the back. So, especially if you're starting out, I would suggest even just doing these two, a full front and a full back. And you could look up other examples of turnarounds online. You could even put in different um, you could even put in different show titles and just go from there and see what model sheets are out there, what turnarounds are out there. And this is an expression comp that I put together for my sketchbook with Tyler, just of a whole bunch of different random expressions. And yeah, this part of the fun of this is it is all aiding in the process of developing the character.
Mhm.
And you could find that, and actually when I look back, I could think about how when I was a kid, the first things that I was doing before I was making characters was just drawing like really crazy faces because I was a really big fan of shows like Ed and Eddie, and I really loved Looney Tunes and stuff like that too. Like
Such
I got,
exaggerated expression.
yeah,
It's
and the
so good.
slapstick. I got to the point with Looney Tune stuff to where like I was able to start being able to tell like who the directors were on individual
Mhm.
cartoons. Yeah, just based off of the style and the way the characters were being written in the shorts. So it gave me a deeper appreciation for just what can be done with fictional characters, what can be done with drawings, and how we could use these sort of like weird abstract
Yeah.
representations of humans and other things to just communicate different feelings that we relate to.
I want to kind of actually touch on that a little more. I just want to let you know that we have like about 3 minutes left.
Oh yeah.
Just so you have that in mind. But like talking about expressions and especially like you reflected back to some of like the earlier cartoon works, something that I've noticed is kind of like I guess and especially with daytime cartoons is like a little bit of that lack of exaggeration of expressions, you know? Like I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if it's a form of like censorship because some of the expressions back then, they were like really wickedly crazy in terms of like giving you I remember like booger scenes just being like so like
Gross out scenes. Yeah.
disgustingly like yeah. And even nowadays when I see these moments of like really exaggerating expression, I mostly see it I know SpongeBob has done like a really good job of I guess like the new illustrators on their team are trying to bring back some of
Yeah.
that, like
Yeah.
if you watch any of like the newer episodes, you
Yeah.
can notice that the drawing style has so much more detail in that like elaboration.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's great that you kind of point that out and still try to like bring that with you, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing that I feel is really dope with comics as well in its own way. And it took me a bit of time to recognize this and to understand it, because I was always such a big animation lover also, and I still am. But
Mm-hmm.
um,
Oh,
yeah,
that's like a whole other, like, actually the drawing style of these exaggerated expressions within like anime and manga. That's never ending.
yeah. And like animation in general, like I've always been really into. But one thing that I've gotten to just understand now, and just over the past several years, is the power that comes with comics and sequential art as well. Because when you're getting to work in this medium and you're getting to create characters that are expressive in different ways, and you're able to understand how readers react to a smaller panel versus a larger one, or how readers get to interpret different things, like the way you break down the different actions that happen in your pages. um when you're able to like form your understanding of how readers get to take that in, then you essentially get to control the animated picture that plays in their head, like as
Right.
they're looking at what's going on.
For sure.
So yeah, that's something that I've gotten to appreciate more about comics over time, because there can be cartoons that I'll look at. And if we're talking about anime specifically, there are times where I'll see an animated adaptation of a manga that I like, and I'll look at certain moments in it and I'll be thinking, wow, this was better animated in the manga than it was in the anime.
Right, right. No, of
Yeah,
course, of course. Oh man. Oh, I want to hear so much more about that. This is our time. That's our time for being able to listen and watch you draw in the process. But I'll have to like pick your brain a lot more about that because
definitely.
that's such a true statement about like maybe it's something about the time and the like nature of these books being a lot more closer in creation versus like the animation that like makes that distance or space. I'm not really sure, but I really like that point because the drawing styles of mangas will always outdo like the animes for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, now that we're kind of finishing up here, we've seen this great sheet. I hope that this was a like great model sheet example for the question that was asked. Is there anything that you would like to kind of share, anything upcoming, or at least being able to share, shamelessly plug in your contacts if people want to reach out for you, and especially to learn more about these sheets or anything that could be helpful for them?
Yeah, definitely. And it's always shameless for sure. So you could follow me at escapist LJ on Twitter or Instagram. And yeah, I have a lot of different stuff coming soon. I'm working on my first mural right now, and it's featuring a few of these characters, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm also working on the next Comicscape book, which is going to be what will make up Volume 4. And I'm also working on a full color kids graphic novel that I'm really excited about. So,
Ever doing the good work, LJ. Thank you so much.
thanks for accepting.
I'm so
Thank
excited
you.
for all the work coming up for you, everything that you're doing. Obviously, your mural work. I'm like update me as that goes along.
Yes. Yeah.
But this was such a great time watching you as well, and just listening to how this has developed for you, and just seeing all the faces of Tyler. That was actually like super special. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you for
Like, give us a little preface of where are you gonna give us for today?
Man, I was just gonna go, just bananas, just go random and see what pops up.
Oh, right.
But
So
I'm
yeah.
gonna be honest, I kind of been inspired, as I usually am, by LJ and the good Dr. Calyn there, and they're
Happy to do
doing
that.
they got their OPs going. I
Mm-hmm.
got one in the works that I've been working on forever, but
Hey.
it's gonna get there. And I don't know. Now they inspire me, so now I want to show my OCs.
Yeah, let's bring it on to a whole like main character, main right here.
But no, I mean just watching those guys was amazing. I love seeing big. I've always been a big fan of LJ since the day we met. And now I'm a new fan to the good doctor over there. I'm gonna have to follow her now and see how Dill turns out and how that goes on.
Same. No,
And
of course.
let's see. But I'm gonna do a. Let me get off my logo brush there.
Yeah, we're definitely excited to kind of see. I'm more so just like so interested at these drawing styles. Like that is like
Okay.
the main thing that kind of like separates all three of you, even though we can have very similar conversations, is the fact that like although inspirations come from so many different places, that you guys
Mhm.
just have such a way with the pen, the digital pen, even though we're here with it. But you know, you
No,
know what I mean.
I love it. I love seeing all the different styles. Like learning is something that just never stops, So that stuff just keeps going and going. Like, the more artists I can see work, like that's a-okay with me.
Of course.
I'm
So you
taking
were
mental
saying,
notes here and there.
of course, you were saying that you were inspired by them drawing their OPs. Like,
Oh yes.
so do you
Yes.
find yourself constantly, or maybe not so, but question for you is like, how often do you go back to drawing your OP now that we kind of got into this
Yeah.
last segment?
I mean, since man, this brush is so weird. Since I've gotten for most of my life I've been like, okay, I want to make art my career. Since like I left my old job,
Of course.
I was like, I got to make art my career. I want it to pay. I want to get paid for doing what I love. First things first, get a 9 to 5, but it has to be art based. That's my rule.
Yeah.
So for a while, I was doing my own thing, doing my art YouTubes, posting on Instagram, and just throwing, applying, seeing who bites. And that wasn't working out, but that kept me on my grind on my own like personal stuff.
Of course.
So just kind of working both sides of the candle. Like, okay, well, if no one hired me, I'm still gonna have my own thing going on.
Yeah.
Um, but let me see. So long story short, I mean, I'm constantly sketching her all the time. Tasha, Rumbles, those two are always around, at least mentally. Like in my head, they're like, okay. My thing is, I just got to get them out and on the paper, like our first two presenters did.
Mm. I kind of see a little bit of this forming already.
Yeah, this brush is being weird, but I'm gonna go with it. I don't care.
No, please do.
A little thing called happy accidents. Like, let's see. This brush is weird. I don't know why it's acting like this, but let's see where it goes, you know?
So when you're building your characters, and I assume this is different for everybody, so I never like to go to the common sense of artists because artists are the most weirdest creative people in the world. But do you think that when building your characters, they all come from the same first step? Like, do you just go in sketching? Do sometimes it involves like a more elaborate conversation, or does it pop out from different areas when you're creating your characters?
I say it comes from different areas. Like some characters you already kind of quote unquote know, like, oh yeah, I know. Like the guy I'm drawing now, Rumbles, right? I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, I'm a big fan of fighting games and animes like Dragon
Mhm.
Ball and like my My Hero Academia, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I wanted someone I wanted something basically I was never gonna get tired of sketching. So I'm like, if this is like a Street Fighter-esque brawler type of character, you know, and
So
just
you're
like
playing.
LJ, I'm big on the Looney Tunes, so I wanted
Yeah.
something that's you know what'll help actually. Let me see. I pulled up some there's our guy right there. There's Rumbles right there, the star of the whole shebang. Some of the cast members here from Rumble Buddies.
Ooh.
You know, Tasha Rumbles in the background there, and so yeah, I was like, I want something very, kind of whimsical.
Mhm.
The culture definitely is involved. Something I'll never get sick of drawing. Crazy battles, like bananas with the battles, like just
Of
insane
course.
exaggeration.
No, that's great though. So do you
I can make these
find when you're
guys.
creating your comics, especially when you're building battles or having those little moments of tension or even aggression, and aggression is never a bad thing, constantly we
Mm.
kind of hear it in different lights. But we see it as early as little kids, like,
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
don't So how do you find yourself kind of balancing creating this artwork for these different audiences and keeping all those in mind, like you're still again like creating such mature work, but what kind of animal is this? It's like kind of like a bunny, kind of
He's
like
kind
a
of like a jackalope,
jackalope,
pro
if
wrestler, like hybrid thing going on,
so
But
how
these
do you come
Rumble,
up with this idea in mind of like all the people that are going to be looking at it, like this cute little soft jackalope that can also like mess
he'll body
somebody
slam
up.
a cyborg or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. um, yeah, and that's the thing, because you're like when you're working on it and you're thinking, and I'm crazy. I like to dream big, so I'm like, sometimes your brain goes down the line, like, man, who am I doing this for? Like, what's this franchise for? Like,
Mm,
so and it just keeps falling back to, you know what? If I like it, there's got to be someone else out there
of
that's
course.
like, yeah, that's awesome, man.
No, that's a super real statement.
And it just comes from like, so with that in mind, it just comes from just things I've grown up with, things I've loved. Like Ninja Turtles is a big one for me growing up.
Mhm.
So like these anthropomorphic hero type of that's in there. Like LJ say, you got the Looney Tunes, so like you got Bugs Bunny, and I used to draw those guys all the time.
Yeah.
Again, just like he said, like you start to know you could tell Chuck Jones from Tex Avery, and
Oh, of course.
you get used to that whole style, and that just bleeds into your style. And so
Of course.
when it comes to make my characters, that I can't help it. Like it's just simply gonna be incorporated, whether I like it or not.
Right.
Like.
So, one thing that I don't know if a lot of like the viewers know, or they could not. You made the artwork for the festival, right?
Oh yes, yes, yes. Oh, so much fun. So much.
How did that come up for you, or was it a conversation, or like how did you come up with the imagery for a
Okay.
visual festival? That already sounds like a lot of pressure. Like, oh my god, like how do I? You,
Listen,
we're hitting so many boxes here.
it was super easy, barely an inconvenience. The big homie Kagan Loose hit me up. He's like, dude, I want some superheroes, preferably of color.
Oh, it has
Get
to
that
be.
representation in there. And he was like, dude, whatever after that. Make a team. It's all up to you, man, whatever.
That's great.
And I'm like, oh, really, sir? Don't mind if I do. And I just thought of all the like archetypes, which is also a big thing when creating characters. Your archetypes, like who's going to be the wild card of the team, you know, who's going to be the face, kind of like the Michelangelo, the one that brings the heart to the team, you know. And that was just it. I just thought of the team. I should have drawn those guys, man. I enjoyed drawing them so much. And it just flowed up from there. Like I just imagined like, oh, this guy's gonna be the leader. You know, he's known as Big Bro. I try to think of a name that was like the citizens of that world would love to call him. Like they admire him, you know?
Yeah.
So like, oh yeah, he's Big Bro. The loose cannon's gonna be Wowlin. I called him Wowlin, like Wowlin out. He's insane, perfect. You know? We got Liddy, who's like the happy-go-lucky one. It just poured out after that.
So in building these characters, kind of like when I asked Dr. Calyn and LJ, like, how do you find yourself being represented or people close to you? You know, like how are these lines being met when you're drawing your characters?
For me, it's mostly just a culmination of just stuff I fully enjoy, like stuff I love. Like just stuff I've grown up with. I was a huge wrestling fan back in the day. And the Ultimate Warrior, you know, $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase days of wrestling. You know, I may be showing my age here.
No, it's okay.
But it was definitely like
at least the people on the panel will know.
But yeah, so like, you know, Rumble's being like a wrestler style type of guy. It's just a Voltron of things that like that I've always been into, you know. Like you can tell already, I'm a big fanboy of things. I'm a fan guy. Like,
have you thought about like within this world of your characters, what other animated world would you want to see them kind of do a crossover in?
Man.
I should ask that, but
listen, I am a fan of crossovers of any kind.
I love crossovers.
Yeah, so man, if Rumble Buddies crossing over, holy smokes, man. You know, they're so influenced by fighting games. I would love to see them in like a Marvel versus Capcom type of
I could see this also in like a Tekken.
Oh, wow. What? With the realistic, like, you know, rendered graphics? Oh my goodness.
And I feel like I'm really trying to think here, but I feel like Tekken had the more like animalistic and non-human type characters too.
You know what? Tekken, they got a lot of human guys, but they threw in mad animals. They had like raptors and kangaroos involved.
And they have like the jaguar and panda.
Oh, yes, King, who was also a wrestler. You're right.
Yeah. So all
right, Rick, so you know you're Tekken, okay.
Huh?
I said, you know you're Tekken, all right.
I love video games. My characters are like femme characters that are inspired by video games because I never saw a main Dominican character.
Yes.
That's what I needed. That, okay, like that's how I literally am like the basis of my drawing. So when I hear about people like being influenced about video games or comics or learning how they can be crossed over, like it's such a, where do you see? I personally see mine like in a Mortal Kombat because I just love the gore of like the finishes. But
Rixie, I gotta ask, are you psyched for the movie? I know you're asking the questions. I'm like taking over the interview.
No, it's okay. Also, we have like 10 minutes left, but yes, I am. I'm not even watching the trailer.
Like, oh man, okay, you're going in fresh.
I shall not do that. No, I want to enjoy it, and I usually kind of didn't like the whole live action fighting game movies, you know, I love what it meant for illustrators to really get into these animated worlds because like we've been talking about is that you get to exaggerate all these shapes, you know, you get to exaggerate their body, exaggerate their capabilities, like nothing is going to compare to this like cartooned world and the fantasy. So I got a little scared when they did the live actions, you know, like Dead or Alive is my favorite fighting game. I don't
Oh
talk about the
yes.
movie though. We don't
I don't think
acknowledge
many.
that
I
it
don't
ever
think many of
exists.
us do. I don't think many of us do.
It never happened. But Mortal Kombat, they better live up to some of those finishes. That's all I require.
It's oh man, from what I'm hearing and
I
judging from
know.
the trailer, it's looking pretty bonkers.
Oh, you
I
saw
can't
it.
wait. I can't. I peeped the trailer. I haven't seen the movie yet,
Okay, no, for sure.
but I know enough that it's gonna have a crazy R rating. So you
Mm-hmm.
know someone's getting
Chopper.
treated bad. Someone's gonna get treated bad in that movie. Man.
No, that's exciting. And
Yeah, I
I
can't.
think like even though we're here at this festival and a lot of times we like assimilate comics and animation with a lot more of a younger crowd. I love because most of these illustrators are adults being
Yeah.
able to talk about the fact that all of these audiences are looking at it. Like
Mm.
even with Mortal Kombat, my mom did not let me watch it or play with. So I went to my cousin's house to do it
Oh yeah, it's
because
gonna happen, Mom. There's nothing you can
exactly.
do
Like
about it.
she didn't allow these things. But I think that's what's fun about, like I said earlier, is like tying in aggression and in some form of violence, or at least the realistic nature of the world
Uh,
into it because it's not playing too safe.
and
So even with you like creating this character, it's
mm,
that blend of like the comfort of this cute animal, but all the power of some of the most amazing movies and shows that we've
yes,
watched.
and I couldn't agree more. Like I mean, the story of Rumble Buddies is a bunch of middle school kids
Mm.
who found out how to harness and bring back their old imaginary friends,
Oh, that's cool.
but they don't know that their imaginary friends are coming from another dimension where like battling is like just what
Normal.
they do. It's a language to them. They're Rumble Buddies.
That's
But the
awesome.
kids just use these guys to like fight their battles, and in turn, the Rumble Buddies give kids powers, so they brawl out.
Oh, that's
And
so cool.
no one really gets hurt because in under Rumble Buddy rules, you can't, a Rumble Buddy can't murder another Rumble Buddy or like another human,
Mm-hmm.
but you guys could just go ham and destroy any and everything around you. And I just wanted something that was just super, just nuts, crazy. The city's disposable. When they have these big brawls, the city's like back in one piece the next
Right.
day, just so they can do it all over again.
The
It's just a
city
crazy
of
world.
Townsville.
Yes, it's like Angel Grove and Power Rangers. Like,
Yeah, it's just like crispy the next day. Like, okay, city developers,
yeah. Like
fix my pothole first.
who are the janitors in this place, man? They do a fantastic job, dude.
No, that's awesome.
But so I know what you mean when it's like, okay, these nice innocent kids, but they know how to get down. Life kids aren't strangers to like life's perils and
Exactly. And that's why I think, I mean, before I continue that conversation, we have like about 5 minutes left. All right. But I think that's really important to not like, I think it's great to have a lot of that like soft comfort of what childhood animations are.
yeah,
But still bringing that in because it's like they're exposed to it anyways.
yeah.
And I think if anything, that creates a lot more understanding for where they're going to be able to actually interact in the real world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you can bring in some of those ties little by little in a way that is kind of playful, then maybe when they see it in the real world, they'll be able to like not be so intimidated
So
by this like
foreign to it,
extreme
yeah,
realistic.
yeah.
Like like I literally when I was watching cartoons, I'd rather like deal with my problems in a very like cartoony way. Like that's why I personally draw. Because then it's like, okay, now I could go learn how to actually deal with it in the real world with like real adults.
No, exactly. And on the other side of that, like you asked me earlier, how do you see yourself in these creations?
Mm-hmm.
Again, back to being a fan and watching like Dragon Ball and stuff, and you know, when you're a kid, you want to pretend to be the heroes. My favorite was
Mm-hmm.
Wolverine. My favorite was always Wolverine growing up. And
Mm.
Wolverine doesn't look like me.
It doesn't have
And I
to, but
just
if you're feeling it through that
no,
character,
exactly. And but
that's more that's important.
yeah, exactly. The essence of that character's gotten across. But you also can't help but wonder, like, man, like I remember there was a time in me, just like maybe around middle school, high school, and I realized, like, man, when I draw a cool looking character,
I trained myself to draw these like white guys so well, but I don't know how to draw my own. And it kind of broke my heart. Like, man, I just thought a cool looking guy was not, it was just some like white dude, some chiseled white dude,
Right, but that's what I mean in terms of like even with this festival, it's so like important to have the
Super
representation of the
necessary.
fact that
Yeah.
we have not it, comic artists of color, and
Mm.
then they're creating work that represents all of these different types of folks. Like when I first heard about this festival, I was like, there's a lot of them. There's more of us.
Oh, dude, I was
This
loving
is
the way the
amazing.
army was growing. Like, holy smokes, who else are we getting,
Yeah.
man?
So I think that's like the coolest part about all this is like we get to share the similarity. And even if the characters that you make aren't like a direct representation of who we
Yeah,
are, but you as an artist is already that representation. It
it's
doesn't have to be the white character that we see on the TV, but it's the team behind the scenes as well that is just as important for all these different type of folks that want to be involved on all these different type of layers.
yeah.
So that's what makes this so much more special. I'm actually going to give you a couple more minutes. We still have some time, so
Oh,
definitely
sweet.
to be
Okay,
able to
okay.
like see this kind of flesh out more. I know I'm like
See what I
interested
could.
in this like muscular anatomy kind of happen for sure.
Try to see what I can do with it here.
See if I
But
could ask you a couple more questions here.
feel free, feel free.
So you were saying that like Wolverine was one of your
Oh, that's my guy. That's my guy, man. He's just
if you were to be part of the X-Men troop, what do you think one of your superpowers? And I say one of because we're all inspired by like 1,000 and we're not allowed to be Professor X or Jean. So
yeah. But I have an answer for this. A friend of mine gave me my powers. I like the angle he took.
hmm
I was like, dude, that's pretty cool. You know what? If anyone asked what my powers would be, now I have an answer. But my good friend Ed, I don't even know if he's like watching right now or whatever, but he's like, dude, you said your X-Men name would be Jam, right?
Okay.
And I'm like, cool, okay, I'm with you so far. And he's like, you'll have the ability to crystallize your body right to this hard, like rock-like substance, or just like jam, or you could like kind of liquefy and like maneuver in
Like a
that manner
blob
too.
monster. Not
Yes.
a blob monster, but like
No, yeah, but you got it though. You got
the
it.
liquefying
And I was
of
like, you know what? I'm with it. I'm with it. It has some offensive elements, some defensive elements. I'm digging it, man.
Would you be jam though? Like a raspberry type with the seeds in it?
The
Or
way because
like
he's also an artist, so the way he sketched it, I was definitely like purpley, like dark purple, but translucent in some spots.
mm,
Had the dreads, but they were kind of like gooing off a bit, like of my main form. The design was sick, man. I was like, dude, we gotta hit up Marvel or something, see what's up.
while Jam is drawing this, would Dr. Calyn or LJ want to talk about what their power would be or the type of like
Oh yes, I want to hear this.
yeah, right? We still have time, so I'm kind of opening up to questions if anybody wants to ask each other about their process or have a moment to just kind of discuss like them as a main character, not so much of the character that they're drawing.
That's such a difficult question, though.
Yeah.
I think, though, that I would choose my power as being more of a mind power than a physical power.
Mm.
Just because I find that would be practical in everyday life, since I don't want to make it my entire career to be saving people.
Karen's like, I'm not going to do that labor.
She's like, the city's in trouble, but I have a deadline though. I can't just up and leave.
It's like a lot of, I don't know if I have the like mental, emotional.
That's real. I respect
Don't
that.
do the labor.
Hey, you don't have to be a superhero or anything, but if you like go to the grocery store and it just makes more sense to like use your power to get the top can off the shelf, then like your day is saved at least.
Listen,
Yeah,
using your power
That's
for
a
mundane
beautiful
things.
sentiment.
Yeah.
like a power, like when you're in an art block, to be able to immediately solve it, then you can produce
Oh
much that's
man,
possible.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, I think I'll just steal Dr. Calyn's answer also for myself. And we'll just
The power
pretend
of,
that
like,
she didn't say it
unblocking.
first.
you'll be art block proof, man. That's crazy.
That's crazy. That sounds like evil genius kind of.
Yeah.
That's
pure villainy right there, man.
I didn't say I was a good doctor though.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Mad scientist.
Jam was the first one to ever say that in life.
Well, what's that?
No, the good doctor. The good
Yeah.
Doctor Calyn.
No, but
First and
it's
last.
fine.
I'm like, dude, respect the title, man.
It's a great cover. Now no one will know.
Everything's going to plan. Yes.
It's everything.
Jam, this is so dope.
Oh,
Yeah,
really,
I
dude?
love
I'm
it.
really.
Yeah, of
Man,
course.
the brush threw me off at first, so I'm like just kind of rolling with it now.
Yeah, no.
I love seeing the progress of the shadows.
Yeah, me too. The lighting is incredible, and I love the star, of course, too.
Oh yes, he has a
Mhm.
big furry star in his right in the middle of him. And like you said, you know what? With your guy with the number 1 on there,
Yeah.
you know, like stuff
The
like
symbol.
stuff like symbols and silhouettes of your character. That stuff is super important, man.
Yeah.
We have about 5 more minutes of you kind of drawing this. And I think what's really special, like LJ kind of said it first off, is this building of your lighting. Like I love to use the word sculptural, regardless if it's like illustrators, cartoonists, because you're considering so much about the shapes, the elements around it. Like you took this white blank piece of paper and now before actually adding the environment, we're thinking about the space that it's taking up because of those little like subtle moments.
No, you're right. It's definitely sculpting. It's definitely sculpting. That's why I highly encourage artists to do just different stuff outside of their box. Like go into sculpt or like, I don't know, make a collage. Like a lot of folks have no idea just how much info you could bring back to your main practice, you know, like
and
go edit a video, shoot a video, bust a few bars, like get into all kinds of.
And you can still kind of like emulate the energy of your characters across disciplines.
That is facts, yes.
That's something that personally I love to practice within like doing a different range of work and mediums. But it's like, how does this character look like if you are doing music, you know, or if you want to embody them in a big space versus something small through color, through this monochromatic kind of detailing. So I think when it comes to this character development, back to what we've been talking about this whole time is like knowing your characters or building the relationship of the artist to the art is going to be able to like give them life in ways that like, you know, you're a mother now. It's
yeah.
This is your child. So I think that's what's like so beautiful about character development. That's why I'm glad you guys all did characters today, because it's like
oh, I'm so glad they did. I was like, oh yes, characters, baby.
Jim, how tall is this guy?
Rumbles is Hulk levels. Like, let me see. I think I closed all the other windows. Oh, this was like when I made a 3D sculpture of him. This is what I used here. Speaking of turnarounds, you know, this was me down in India.
Yeah, front and profile.
And so he's on some Hulk stat. Like that was my idea. I was like, yo, I want someone that could like go toe to toe with the Hulk if Hulk showed up.
If you were gonna be next to this character, what would the scale be?
You would probably be at his. If there was like a realistic like Marvel movie, you'd probably be at his belt, maybe. Or maybe like the mid of his star. He has hooved legs, so he kind of bends and hunches over a lot.
So it's like 3 times a human's height.
Almost. Yes, that is safe to say.
Wow.
Ooh, that's kind of nice. That's cool.
Wow. Like enough to like bust through a house with no problem. Like when these guys fight, like the property damage is just like please stop, man.
Yeah, like seriously, can we talk about like they mentioned it in The Incredibles?
Oh my god,
but it's like it's true that that's a problem.
Yeah.
We have
It's
about
like
2
you
more minutes,
ruin all
y'all.
the.
No, what's that? 2 more minutes? All right, got it.
Yeah. No, you
Got
guys keep talking. I just want to make sure y'all know.
Speaking of silhouette, I forgot one of his like key characteristics.
Oh yeah, the antler.
Mm-hmm.
How dare I, man?
So, but when it's funny because like the name you came up with it's kind of cuddly, but it's also threatening at the same time.
Yes, and I mean that's what I was. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest. While I was making this, I'm like, dude, I want something that's awesome. I'll never get sick of drawing. Highly marketable. Like I could imagine action figures and plushies and like something the world could just go crazy for if it ever got to that level.
Like Baby Yoda type.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Before Baby Yoda.
Like Yoda's
That's dope.
Yoda's super cuddly and dangerous all at the same time.
And like he gets the cereal, he gets,
Oh yeah. Part of this complete breakfast.
Rumble Puffs.
Yeah.
Oh,
really
man.
intentional.
Why did you say it? Now that has to happen now. I gotta get Rumble Puffs.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah,
it could start as an Easter egg in the book. We're like,
Yeah.
Yes. That's how it always starts, man.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
So beautiful.
Sharpen these lines up.
Well, within our last minute jam,
Yes.
man, I wish we could all like keep watching and talk. Like, I think we're all just like really just watching you do every single one of these like lines right now. I would love for you to kind of tell us like, what's coming up next for you, or what are some things that you kind of have on your plate?
Well, so I landed a super dreamy job that I've been enjoying for the past few months. And I can't say much about it's a video game company called Harmonix Studios.
Okay.
And they were the guys who made like Rock Band and Guitar Hero and all that stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm with these guys, and all I can say, the game they're working on is like,
Poof.
yes, man. Being a music fan that I am, and the type of music I love, and it's just everything that like the gods have bestowed like the perfect gig upon me.
Right.
So
No, that's
I'm working on a 6-sit game. It's gonna be awesome. And Rumble Buddies, and when I'm not doing that, I'm trying to get the balance of having an actual job again and like sticking with my the stuff I'm doing on my own. So Rumble Buddies is gonna be a big push. Every time I see Kagan or LJ, I'm like, dude, they got billions of books. I just gotta make this one. Why haven't I made this one yet?
You got it.
So
and you also do like live draws on YouTube, right? Like
yes, I gotta post more videos. It's been like 5 months. So long story short, I got the job thing down. I got the 9 to 5 down. Now I'm gonna start balancing the personal projects. So my YouTubes, Rumble Buddies, all that jazz is gonna start, going back into full swing pretty much.
I think there is a question from audience is if you do commissions. So, somebody trying to pay you right now.
Oh man.
So like definitely plug us with like your contact info or where people can reach out to you to ask about personal projects and like, work with you a little more.
Indeed. If you guys go to jamsketch.com, all my socials are right at the top of the website, all my artwork. Hit me up, jamsketch.com. You'll see my Instagram there, my Facebook, my YouTube. Click on all that, hit that like, subscribe, that notification bell, all that good stuff. And just let me know what you guys want to see.
For sure.
And I'll try and deliver for sure.
Well, I'll let you like keep drawing a little bit while I kind of like talk over, so we have some like great visualization other than my face and like cheesing at this. But I want to like personally thank all three of you for taking this time to draw and talk. It's great just as artists for us to be able to, we would have done this anyways. But the fact that it was like
I could do this no matter what, man.
Exactly. But I think that's what's even more special is that being able to like share these conversations with a lot of other folks in such a like natural way. It's not this like extreme Q&A. It's the fact that all of this is very realistic and normal, to be able to find fluidity of talking about your process, sharing it, like hearing and bouncing ideas off of other artists. And again, like showing so much strength in like how each one of you are individually just so strong in what you love and what you like and what you're creating. you know, like
Yeah.
there's so many things that each one of you can be providing and do provide for so many people. I thank y'all for committing to doing art. Oh, here we go with some tone. Oh my. So I thank y'all personally, from artist to artist, to like being committed to doing what you're doing and being able to share that with us today. That's super special.
No, Rick, so we think the opportunity alone is always, again, Kagan already knows, just give me a call if that guy needs something. He's surrounded by awesome people, so I'm always more than ready to just jump in and like
Right.
lend in
Oh,
any
are
way I
you?
can.
I meant to ask LJ as well, but are both of you also going to be there on Saturday?
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Rixie. I feel the same way, and just like Jam was saying too, like I'm just really glad to be able to be up here with y'all and to share my work along you, Jam, and you, Calyn, and see your process live. So yeah, like it's just been a lot of fun. So I'm glad that we're able to just make this whole thing happen.
Right. I know, and especially in this like virtual world, you know, like
Yeah.
the art making doesn't stop. And granted, the world is evolving in a lot of different places, but the fact that it's still possible to like, I mean, you guys were creating digitally before everything, obviously, but regardless of what's kind of like being put in front of you and the different like limitations, you're gonna work with what you got and still kind of create through it, which is like the most inspiring for sure.
Yeah, and I really also just, want to put in a thank you as well. And it was just so great also meeting you, Rixie.
Oh, you
And
also.
yeah, and so great questions and great engagement. And of course you have your own practice, which is fantastic as well. So you're familiar like with processes and things like that.
I'm inspired by all these different types of practices. That's the point of us being here, you know. So no,
yeah, everyone's
thank
has
you.
like a different way, and it's just great. And it's nice to see you again, LJ. It's nice to see you, Jim. And
Oh,
Yeah, of
pleasure,
course.
pleasure.
Kagan, as usual. It's like every year I wanted to be able to finally make it to Comics in Color, but like now school was a problem, and now that school is out, well, it's
Here we
finally here.
are.
You have to do your
We're finally
thing.
done that over that. So yeah, so it's definitely a blessing for sure.
For sure. Well, I want to thank you guys so much again. I could say thank you 1,000 times over, but I want to make sure that we don't kind of reach any time limits for other folks, because there's so many great panels and things kind of coming up with the festival. Um, if I'm not sure, I don't have any information to plug, but that was such a great time. I mean, I guess I'll plug myself too, but Rixie, again, this was such a fun time to be able to moderate all this. My Instagram is at Rixy, FZRIXYFZ, doing a lot of great work as well with characters, but to be able to be here to talk with these folks, to be able to work with Comics in Color, and Kagan, like that's definitely the main kind of like golden item right now. We have another panel kind of coming up after this called Meet the Makers at 5 o'clock. So definitely, if you're interested, please go into that panel, learn more from all these other creatives, be there on Saturday. The festival is just a huge resource for all of us in Boston and beyond these walls, to be able to connect with all these great artists. Again, like I didn't actually think about the fact that there was this opportunity to meet other Black and Brown creatives in such a small city that is doing such great comic work and cartoon work. So always honored to be here and to be meeting everybody and talking to a great audience somewhere in this world. So thank you guys all again. And I hope you guys have a great, fantastic rest of your day, to the artists and to the viewers. So